This is Ryan.
And I'm John.
Welcome to preview season.
Oath of the Gatewatch.
All right, we've got a lot of great cards for this episode.
So many!
So many great cards. Let's just get right to it. Number one, Prophet of Distortion.
Ow!
This is one of the few cards I've seen so far that would make me kind of consider going all in on the colorless mana-producing plan for a limited game. Getting to draw extra cards when the game stalls out can be huge, and forcing your opponent to spend their removal spell on your one-drop.
It's a good feeling.
Feels
it's a good
so
feeling.
Good.
So this is... A point of reference for this card is Azure Mage from, I believe, M12. Pretty sure it's M12. And that was in Delver sideboards. And Delver's one of the better blue decks that Standard's seen in a while. So the fact that Azure Mage was competing against all these awesome blue cards and still managed to make the 75 means that, like, this ability is good. And this card is... I mean, I really like this card. It demands an immediate answer on an empty board in both constructed and limited, and even as, like, if you play it as a pseudo 5-drop where you just play it for 1 mana and then you activate it, you have the mana activate it, that's fine. Its stats are pretty bad. A 1/2 is irrelevant as a body, but
I mean, it'll eat Eldrazi Scion tokens.
Cool.
Yeah.
Not the highest bar you've ever set for a card.
You know, right.
But yeah, I'm definitely picking this card earlier in draft than I should.
Sure. Up next, Eldrazi Obligator.
Okay.
Now, I almost missed the fact that this guy has haste because it's way at the bottom of his card, but you could use him as a poor man's lightning bolt if you need a quick 3 damage on an empty board. Trick I'm most looking forward to, though, you play him and use his kind of kicker ability there to grant haste to a creature your teammate just played. It doesn't say you have to grab an opponent's creature. You can grab anything. So give your team a little boost there. You can coordinate a big attack out of nowhere and just really hit them when the shields are down.
Sure. I mean, this is just what the world was asking for, right? It's a Zealous Conscripts with no synergy with Splinter Twin or Kiki Jiki. Okay, so it's probably too expensive to make a splash in Constructed, but it's a fine limited card at both mana costs. You can just consider it a 3-drop or a 5-drop. As a 3-drop, it seems a little underwhelming, a 3/1 for 3, but as I've said before in these videos, the Devoid deck, you need that, like, critical mass of colorless creatures, and since the red ones kind of are occupied with aggression and reach and just getting your damage in, the haste is actually super valuable. So I like this card quite a bit.
Sure. How about Vile Redeemer?
How about it?
How about it? For 3 mana, you get a 3/3 creature straight up. Yeah, all right, that's fine. That's a body. You can swing that 4th bit of colorless mana, though. Then this guy can show up packing an army when your opponent least expects it. The non-token clause means that he's not going to be replacing your Scion ranks. But even if he replaces 2 other dead creatures, well, you just got 5 power and toughness for 4 mana at instant speed. You can't ignore that.
So when I was a little kid, I played a lot of green decks, and I would play things like Blastoderm and Rogue Elephant, and my opponent would play Wrath of God, which I could never ever hope to deal with, and I was always super frustrated when I would just build up this huge board and I would amass this army just to get destroyed by 1 card. So a card like Caller of the Claw, which is kind of the predecessor to Vile Redeemer, really kind of piqued my interest. This is not as good as Caller of the Claw, but I still like it quite a bit, especially in limited. You know, it is green. I will give you that. It's green, so it's got a lot going against it off the bat, but it's a tricky card. It's a angle of play that green doesn't normally get, which places some value on it. It's a nice flash blocker, or it's a follow-up to a combat step that maybe didn't quite go your way. I think it's got a lot of play to it.
Sure. But not quite enough play to move green up from being the kind of the whipping boy of this set.
Oh,
up to
no.
being okay, all right.
It's still the worst.
Yeah,
it's terrible.
It's a good try, Green, but we're wise to you.
Yeah.
All right. Needlespires. Creatures with double strike get progressively better in 2 ways, right? Stick an aura on them or play a combat trick that buffs their power. Neither of those is really an option with Needlespires here. An aura won't stick once it stops being a creature. It goes back to being a land at the end of the turn. And since you had to spend 4 mana plus use the land itself to attack, that's 5 lands already tied up, you don't really have a big budget left for instants or sorceries. So upside seems kind of limited. What do you think?
Yeah, so I will say this: the floor for how good a man land is very high.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really tough card to evaluate. I think 4 damage is a lot for a land to deal, but 4 mana to pay is a lot to activate. And at the end of the day, it has 1 toughness and no evasion. I think the value in this card is actually in limited, because when you cast an Awaken spell, you can put the counters on this land. Oh. And even though it stops being a creature, those counters don't go away.
Right.
They stay there. So that is a way to kind of artificially grow this card without needing to use an aura.
I like it. All right. Let's take a look at this next card, Oath of Jace. Now, this one gets under my skin a little bit here, so if you'll pardon me while I kind of vent to you, John.
Go for it.
All right. So, Oath of the Gatewatch is a small set, but it still has 42 rares and 12 mythics, which is more than usual for a set of this size. Now, I have to assume that this card, Oath of Jace, is part of a cycle, at least 4 colors. There probably won't be a black Oath, unless Nixilis suddenly switches teams for some reason, but I don't think that's going to happen, right? So we've got the other 4 Planeswalkers. You've got Nissa, Gideon, Chandra, and Jace here, presumably all having their own Oath cards, okay?
Yes.
So if all of these Oaths reward you for having a Planeswalker the same way this one does, well, it means that half of those 4 cards might as well just go right into a paper shredder during a sealed or a draft game. Even if your pool is so good that you open a Planeswalker and an Oath and enough playables in those same colors to make a functional deck, you still have 0 guarantee you're going to draw both of those cards together in the same game. And may the gods of Theros help you if you open 2 of the same Oath, because they're legendary. You can't even put them both out on the field at the same time. So it's another dead card. What is going on? This is such a wasted rare slot. I mean,
I'm with you on all of that. This card has a lot of text, and I don't mean that in a fun way. It's just,
right to the point.
It's not good.
All right. Moving on. Let's take a look at hopefully a much better card, General Tazri.
I'm reading Tazri. We'll call it Tazri.
The old Tasmanian devil himself.
Sure.
Right. So, I hope that name sticks. So this card, I'd be a little bit happier to see show up at my pre-release. Allies should be plentiful, and adding a few to your deck should be easy, no matter what colors you end up in. You'll probably never use his little Coalition Victory, Power Rangers, Captain Planet, Rainbow thing, team buff, but at least he's not totally dead weight in your deck because you didn't bring a Planeswalker.
So while I'm referencing all these old cards that are kind of pre-modern, I'm going to reference another tribal deal that Wizards tried way back in 2000 called Rebels. And Rebels, what happened was you played a Rebel, and you could activate the Rebel, you tapped mana and the Rebel, and then you searched out your deck for another Rebel, and you kind of got to work your way up the chain. You got to turn 1 card into 5 cards.
Oh boy!
For the cost of 1 card, and it ended up being really, really good. And so I think R&D is maybe trying to use allies as a point of reference for. Or they're trying to use Rebels as a point of reference for allies, especially this one. It's just that this is not very good. It's just like they realize how good allies, or they realize how good Rebels were. Man, I keep getting these tribes mixed up. So
but they're so different, John. Come on.
So they realized how good Rebels were, and they realized they had to fix it. And this is kind of the fixed version of Rebels, which means they're not very good. I mean, okay, so there's definitely a chance that there's a good ally deck in Standard. You've got the Haste ally, the Lifelink ally, Double Strike ally, but it's really unlikely that this deck is going to be anywhere near it.
Yeah, I feel like the best ally deck right now kind of cheats by using like Rally the Ancestors to pull a bunch of dead ones out of the graveyard and get all the triggers at once. And this guy doesn't really even help you with that plan. So we'll have to keep an eye on him and see what the old general is up to.
Yeah, I think he's more suited for EDH, or maybe it's a she. I don't really get a good look at the art.
Yeah, good point. All right, the last card in our batch here, Deceiver of Form. Ooh, this could be interesting, especially in Limited, where creatures tend to make up a slightly bigger portion of your deck to begin with, but even so, the percentage of times you either whiff by hitting a land or one of your smaller creatures that you don't want copied everywhere, it's going to be pretty high, right? So if you have the ability to scry, maybe and reliably set up your top deck, you might be okay, but even then, that's a lot of hoops to jump through for an effect that is just more fun and kitschy than, you know, useful.
Sure. This card bums me out, and it's not because it's bad, because it's not bad. It's cool. It's a cool ability, but it costs 7.
Yeah.
It's like, it's a bajillion, basically.
Pretty much.
And so when a card costs that much mana, you start to demand a little more of it. Like, if you're investing 7 mana into a card, it better like win the game or come close to doing that.
Yeah.
This doesn't do that. It has a cool ability that is really good at attritioning an opponent out and kind of accruing incremental advantage, but that's not what you're asking for from your 7-drops. 7-drops have to win the game. This is more for the casual set.
Definitely. Yeah, it has to win the game pretty much by itself, not with a good top deck and a board that already has a bunch of creatures that you want to, you know, make clones of your top deck and a whole bunch of stuff. It has to go right there for that to be any good.
Exactly.
All right, well, if you are interested in Deceiver of Form or any of the cards previewed here today, you can find them all available for pre-order on TCGplayer.com right now. Yeah. We'll also have all the other cards as they're previewed anywhere, uploaded as quick as we can, so check back frequently and especially watch for further videos from us during preview season. We appreciate you watching, so thanks a lot. Have a great one.
Happy New Year!